27 years. And they let me go with a dry smile, like I was dead weight in a system I had built myself. You're no longer needed, Edward. We're going digital. And frankly, you're not part of that vision. He didn't even look me in the eye. The office was dead quiet, just the soft whirring of the fan behind Travis's chair. I took a deep breath. I saw it coming, but it still hurt. My name is Edward Danner. I'm 52. For 27 of those years, I was the logistics manager at Allridge Implements, one of the oldest agricultural equipment companies in the Midwest. I knew every route, every shortcut, every operational risk like the back of my hand. I was the one who restructured the entire distribution system when our fleet doubled, back when maps were still printed on paper. I never asked for a promotion. I just got things done. Travis Hall is 35 and carries a kind of confidence that doesn't come from experience. The guy barely knows what a combine harvester looks like. But he's married to the founder's youngest daughter, and apparently that's enough. He came in with buzzwords, flashy PowerPoints, and meetings full of empty catchphrases. Called the veterans the old guard. Thought it was funny when he got our names wrong. He didn't inherit the company. He stormed in with a golden badge. But there's one thing Travis didn't know. One small detail in the contract. A forgotten clause that still belonged to me. 2 days before they let me go, my access badge started acting up. At the turnstile near the shipping dock, I had to get help from security. The guy chuckled and said it was probably a glitch in the new system. Everything's digital now, Edward. Even the damn coffee machines got a QR code. I smiled back, but something didn't sit right. That scanner had always recognized my badge on the first try, for 27 years. The next day, my login to the routing dashboard was disabled. I called IT. Some kid answered and said it was a system update, then hung up quick. When I tried pulling up the weekly reports, the spreadsheet was locked with a new password. I felt like a stranger in the very system I had built. The invite came via email. Strategic alignment meeting, vague subject line, cold sender, just HR. When I walked into the room, they were already there. Travis sitting casual, suit jacket draped over the back of his chair, and Marcia from HR staring down at the floor. She didn't even offer me coffee. Just handed me an envelope. Travis didn't ask me to sit, he just started talking. Edward, we're restructuring. We need a logistics model that's more connected. That's the word he used. Connected. As if the problem was the connection and not the arrogance of someone who's never ridden in a semi. I stayed on my feet. The room went quiet. So, do you want me to hand something over or just leave? He blinked, caught off guard. You can take your personal items today. Security will escort you out. Security. 27 years. And security. I grabbed my mug. The same one they gave me when I hit my 10-year mark at the company. The name was handwritten on the side. Faded now. My locker didn't hold much. An old pair of gloves, a folded-up map with routes I'd drawn by hand, and a photo of me with the founder, Richard Allridge. He used to call me the brain behind the roads. On the way out, I noticed they had replaced the sign outside the operations room. It used to read, Allridge Logistics Center, founded by Edward Danner. Now, shipping hub, powered by Velocity Metrics. My name was gone. Like I had never been there. Out in the parking lot, I saw Caleb, the oldest driver on the team. His eyes were glassy, but he lowered his head. He had kids, bills. He couldn't afford to take sides. I understood. I got into my truck, turned on the radio, turned it right back off. Silence felt more honest. When I got home, my wife was already on the porch. She knew. It happened today, didn't it? I nodded. They said they were cutting the old dead weight. Looks like I'm part of the scrap. She hugged me. Didn't say a word. Didn't try to fix it, just held on. Steady. But there was one thing Travis didn't know. In my last contract, signed back when Richard was still in charge, there was a quiet little clause. Article 14, Section 3. Any system developed in-house under the sole leadership of the employee, on a non-compensated basis, shall revert to the employee in cases of termination without cause. And guess who redesigned the entire internal logistics network? Alone, creating the routes and processes that doubled the company's efficiency. What Travis failed to realize, in his rush to erase me, was that part of the company still belonged to me. The next morning I woke up at the usual time. My body hadn't figured out there was nowhere to go. Black coffee, quick shower, blue polo, the one I used to wear on inventory Mondays. Before I even realized it, I was sitting in my truck, engine running, staring at the road. Only, there was no destination. I shut it off, went back inside, sat on the porch. The kind of silence that comes when you've been written out of your own story. Diane watched me through the kitchen window. Didn't say a word. She just made 2 scrambled eggs, set the plate next to me, and quietly went back inside. Love, sometimes, is silent too. The phone rang. Blocked number. No caller ID. I didn't answer. I spent the rest of the day going through old boxes in the basement. Found a notebook, the first sketches of the delivery model I designed back in 2006. Drawn in pencil, every line mapped out with care, every junction marked by hand. That was my value, invisible to people who only read PowerPoint slides. 3 days later, my daughter sat me down and gave me hell. Dad, you're not just your badge. You're the reason half those people still get a paycheck. I swallowed hard. She was right, but I couldn't feel it. I felt hollow. That Saturday, Diane suggested we drive to the next town's farmer's market. You need to see people. Remember who you are outside that warehouse. I agreed. That's where I ran into Lucas, former sales rep at Allridge. Now he runs a small parts store. Edward, I heard you left, but no one said it happened like that. He told me orders were getting delayed. The new leadership had stripped the reps of their autonomy. No one knew how to fix even the simplest problems anymore. They took the man who knew the road and replaced him with a kid who only understands Wi-Fi. I smiled for the first time in days. When we got home, Diane handed me an envelope. Found this in your desk drawer. It's from Richard. It was a letter, dated 5 years ago. Edward, if I leave before you do, and they bring in people who don't know what it means to get their hands dirty with grease, go your own way. You're more than this company. You are what it was supposed to keep being. I cried. Silently. The pain of the fall isn't the impact. It's the void that follows when they don't even let you say goodbye. But that night, in the quiet of our backyard, a spark lit up, and it wasn't anger. It was the beginning of a plan he'd never see coming. Pain doesn't vanish overnight. It just changes shape. That first week, the house felt too big. Silence followed me from room to room. I'd carry my plate to the sink and forget there was no 2 p.m. meeting to rush back to. I kept bumping into myself, like my old routine was still waiting for me. One morning, Diane asked me, "Have you ever thought about what you'd do if you could start from scratch?" The question echoed for hours. From scratch? I walked into the home office, a space I'd mostly used for bills and old memories. I cleared off the desk, tossed out a pile of outdated papers, set my old clipboard right in the center, poured myself a fresh pot of coffee. The smell took me back to the shipping floor, staying still in the middle of the mess. That's where most good ideas are born. I opened one of the drawers and found an old map of Iowa I hadn't seen in years. It was covered in handwritten markings, blue, red, and green ink. Each color had a meaning. Blue, high-risk segments for delays. Red, trusted support stops. Green, emergency routes for rainy days. I traced the markings with my fingers. My whole story was right there, not made of job titles or promotions, but of practical knowledge no one else there still had. I spent 3 quiet hours mentally redrawing the routes, calculating timing, rest stops, soil conditions in each region. Spreadsheets don't show that. Travis would never understand that sometimes the difference between meeting a deadline or not is knowing the bridge in Hamburg floods after 2 nights of rain. By late afternoon, I picked up the phone and called Caleb, asked if he could stop by. He showed up with hesitant steps and tired eyes. "Haven't seen that look on your face in a while," he said. "Looks like you just found a treasure map." I sat him down at the table and laid it out. "I'm thinking about starting something new. Nothing big, just something that works." His eyes widened. "You mean your own logistics operation?" I nodded. "With people who actually know what they're doing. People who don't need an app to figure out if a tractor fits on a trailer." He went quiet for a few seconds, took a slow sip of coffee. "Today we got stuck on a dirt road because the new system said it was paved. I lost 2 deliveries and a client." Then he looked at me, steadier this time. "If you open a door, I'll walk through it." I didn't say anything, but inside, I felt it. The first sign of rebuilding. That night I sat on the porch with Diane. She brought out another old envelope. Found this tucked inside one of your books. Had Richard's name on it. It was handwritten. Edward, if I'm ever not around and they put someone in charge who only understands profit and forgets what it means to have dust on your boots, remember, that's not what we built. You are the most valuable thing this company has. I stared at that letter for minutes. His words, his respect, his trust. That was the sign I needed. The next morning I called Hank, an old supplier, always loyal. If you're the one in charge, he said, I'm in. Allridge delayed 2 of my deliveries just this week. I made a note. Then I called Denise from the Fremont Co-op. She was almost in tears. If you're back in business, I'll trust again. I closed my notebook slowly. It wasn't just longing for who I used to be. It was the quiet certainty of what I could still build, piece by piece. Turning an old map into a real operation felt like trying to rebuild a tractor from scraps of memory. But I started anyway, slowly. First came the list of names. People who, like me, had been cast aside by the new era. Veteran drivers. Techs who could tell what was wrong with a machine just by the smell of the engine. Operators who knew where to cut costs without cutting corners. I called each one. Some answered in hushed voices, cautious. Others didn't bother hiding their relief. Edward, I thought you disappeared. No, just went quiet. I couldn't offer much. A tight beginning. No guarantees. No immediate benefits, but I promised respect, partnership, and, above all, that no one would ever be treated like dead weight. 7 said yes in the first week. One of them was Tom, my old partner in heavy hauling. If you've got a warehouse and a spreadsheet, he said, I'll haul corn to a silo in the rain. The warehouse came a few days later. It was an old steel frame building on the outskirts of Keokuk, belonged to a friend of my brother's. It needed paint, wiring, and you could hear every footstep echo through the place. But there was one thing about it that caught me right away. The wide open view of the road. Everything starts there, with pavement and a clear direction. While we worked on fixing up the place, I began digitizing my old systems, not the ones from Allridge, but the ones I'd developed on the side, using my own method for calculating routes and maximizing efficiency. I had saved it all. Years ago, Richard had encouraged me to create an independent backup. You never know when someone will try to simplify something that only works because it's complex. That's when I went back to the contract. Article 14, Section 3. I pulled out the signed copy, took it to a lawyer in town. He read through it carefully, then looked at me like he'd found gold buried in the backyard. If the system was developed by you, outside your formal duties and without specific compensation, then yes, you own it. That signature, Richard's, became my shield, and the new operation, my silent answer. Behind the scenes, Travis had no idea what I was building. He was too busy swapping out consultants and renaming departments with trendy, hollow titles. But the suppliers knew, and they started talking. Some clients called, Edward, is it true you're coming back? All I said was, we're working on something new. No promises, just consistency. That's what folks in the field care about. On a rainy Wednesday, Diane showed up at the warehouse with a thermos of coffee and a smile. You look like a different man. I was. Leaned out. Sharper. More. Me. She pointed at the whiteboard where I'd been sketching out delivery flows. This is the man I fell for. The one who can see a road, even inside an empty warehouse. I kissed her forehead and went back to the board. Thursday, Hank sent over our first formal order. A critical delivery. Tight deadline, complicated route. If we failed there, it would all collapse before it even left the ground. The first load went out at 5:12 a.m., a shipment of parts for industrial irrigators in Wayne. It hadn't rained in weeks, and the harvest had to start before the next storm. The client, a group of small farmers, had missed 2 deliveries in a row with Allridge. Their trust was shot. Their fields almost too. Caleb showed up early. The truck was clean. Tank full. He smiled when he saw the printed route on the dash, complete with handwritten notes and soil warnings. This is next level. Feels good to be useful again. The road held steady. At 9:47 a.m. I got the first message. Delivery made. Everything in place. Client signed. Smiling. I sat in silence for a few seconds. This wasn't about a shipment. It was about being seen again. Later that day, the co-op posted on Facebook a picture of the truck pulling into the field. The caption read, When experience meets the road, this is what you get. Within 24 hours, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Small farmers, field managers, old partners, all asking, "Is it true you're back? Got room for one more load? Can we drop Allridge?" The name of the new operation wasn't even on the front door yet, but in the background of the industry, it was already spreading. Next morning, Hank called, voice buzzing. "You see what just came out in the Central Co-op Bulletin?" I hadn't. Client breaks with Allridge after repeated failures. Back's new model led by veteran ex-manager. I was the ex, and that was the first visible strike. That afternoon, Travis sent a legal notice, cold, sloppy, threatening legal action for unauthorized use of internal know-how. My lawyer replied in 2 lines. "The reference system is legally owned by Mr. Danner under Clause X of Contract Number Y, signed by Richard Allridge." Silence. Nothing back. That night, Caleb came back from the second run with an envelope in hand. Said he was from Allridge's finance team. Stopped me on the road. Asked me to give you this. I opened it. Consulting offer. $5,000 a week. For temporary strategic support. I laughed. Diane heard me laugh but didn't ask. She just refilled my coffee mug. I wrote 1 line on the back of the letter. "Those who fire you for not seeing your value don't deserve explanations when that value shows up." Sent it back the same way it came. The following week, 3 of my old colleagues quit Allridge and showed up at the warehouse. No words, just backpacks and resolve. "We want to work with someone who understands the weight of a load." I took them in, every one of them, not for their titles, but because they knew when to hit the brakes when the mud started to pull. The new operation was growing thick skin. What started with 1 delivery became a whisper across the entire industry. And Travis, he started hearing my name again. The first time Travis called me, I ignored it. The second time too. The third time, he left a voicemail. "Edward, we need to talk. We're facing some logistical challenges. I believe there's room for collaboration." Logistical challenges. He called the collapse a spreadsheet issue. Meanwhile, our operation was doubling in size. The warehouse got new signage. A simple logo, just a road and a gear. Danner Freight Solutions. Nothing flashy, but honest. Caleb laughed when he saw it. "It's ugly, but it's you." I took it as a compliment. Our contracts kept stacking up. Allridge kept repeating the same mistakes, missed deadlines, lost shipments, auto-replies with useless answers. Out in the field, that meant failed harvests, money down the drain. We, on the other hand, delivered the basics with surgical precision. No AI, no blockchain, just good logistics. Then came the most symbolic request of all. Richard's own daughter, Travis's wife, sent an informal proposal under a hidden name, asking for consulting on emergency logistics restructuring. It was her, of course. I tried to picture that conversation at their house. Her, "Your former employees making headlines." Him, "It's just temporary." Was it? Marcia, the former head of HR, called me in confidence. "Edward, you didn't hear this from me, but the board's starting to question everything. The reports are a mess. And Travis, he's telling them this is all you're doing." I stayed quiet. "He's saying you poached key people, that you manipulated the suppliers." I took a deep breath. I just picked up what he threw away. The following week, news of an emergency meeting at Allridge leaked across the industry. 3 lost contracts, one of them from a co-op that had been a client since 1984. For the first time, the name of the new company appeared in a local newspaper. "Agricultural veteran returns with lean operation, already attracting major clients." I printed the article and sent it to Caleb with a note. No horn, just the road. The next day, another note was waiting for me on the desk. "Travis has been temporarily removed. The board wants to investigate his practices." I didn't celebrate. I just sat in my chair, looked out over the warehouse, now full of motion, and thought, I didn't have to raise my voice. The road did the talking. But what I didn't expect was who called me the next day, using Richard's old number. Friday, another call came in from the Allridge office. This time, from Richard's old line. "Edward, this is Eleanor. My father wanted to know if you'd be willing to meet. He heard that you're back. He feels like he needs to talk." Old Richard, the man who taught me never to waste a good spreadsheet or a good driver. Maybe it was time to listen. Maybe. I met Richard in the same place where he hired me 27 years ago. A no-frills diner, paper napkins, and the smell of bacon hanging in the air. He looked older, more hunched over, white hair neatly combed. Same eyes, though. The kind that calculated margin of error, even in a cup of coffee. "Edward, I've been following what you're doing. I'm proud of you," he said, even if it stings to say it, wearing the Allridge name on my chest. I nodded. He held onto a napkin like it was a spreadsheet, hands a little shaky. I retired thinking I was leaving the company in the hands of someone who understood the factory floor, someone who could hear the whisper of gears turning. But Travis, he only saw numbers, not people. I looked him in the eye. "And you saw that too late." He swallowed hard. "Yeah." We sat in silence for a long stretch. The waiter brought over 2 coffees. Bitter. Just like always. Richard pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. "The board wants you back. As chief of operations. Double salary, full autonomy. And an apology. They get it now." I set my cup down. Slowly. "They get it now." Because the dust finally kicked up. "I get it too," he said quietly. I took the paper from his hand, read halfway through, then folded it, carefully. "Richard, I built something new, from scratch. With people no one wanted anymore, and with the dignity I managed to salvage from what they tried to take." He didn't try to convince me, just closed his eyes for a moment. "You're right." But I had to ask. I paid the bill before he noticed. As we stepped outside, he placed a hand on my shoulder. "You weren't just an employee. You were the backbone. Travis never understood that." I gave a faint smile. He does now. I went back to the warehouse with the offer still in my pocket. Never showed it to anyone. On Monday, I got in before everyone else. Sunlight poured through the windows, lighting up the newly organized shelves. The hum of the forklift, radio chatter, drivers talking over coffee. This was mine. Mine because I was thrown out. And instead of breaking, I built. I picked up the offer letter, dropped it into the metal trash bin beside my desk, and struck a match. Not out of revenge, but because some doors need to stay shut if we're ever going to move forward. That afternoon, I got a voicemail from Travis. Shaky, awkward. "Edward, I just wanted to say if at any point you ever think about, well, reconsidering," I deleted it before he finished. I'd already reconsidered, and as the wheels rolled out on the open road, a new question crept in. Was I ready to grow for real this time? 6 months later, the warehouse that once felt too big was already too small. We had to lease 2 more, one in Ottumwa, another in Marshalltown. The team had grown. From the original 7, we became 23. And the best part? Not a single one of them came because of a resume. They came because of trust. Trust is built on the asphalt. Not in conferences. I didn't run every route anymore, but I kept my old map pinned to the wall. The one with the blue, red, and green markings. It became a symbol. New hires would ask what the colors meant. I'd smile. They're the mistakes that taught me more than the wins ever did. Caleb became route supervisor. Tom ran the fleet. And me? I took care of the culture, the foundation, reminding everyone that every load we hauled was more than just cargo. It was a promise. Eleanor, Richard's daughter, sent me a letter. Long, full of regret, and the kind of silence that lives between the lines. She said Travis had stepped down, voluntarily, that Allridge was now trying to reconnect with the field, that she admired what I had built. She ended with, "If you ever feel like talking, the door is open." I didn't reply. Not out of anger, but because some stories don't need an epilogue. They need continuation. One day a young guy showed up at the office. Clean-cut, tucked-in shirt, quiet voice. His name was Nathan, nephew of an old client. He'd studied logistics in Omaha. I want to learn from someone who really knows what they're doing. I took him out to the warehouse, showed him the maps, the routes, the box of grease-covered tools. You don't learn this in school. He looked around like he was standing in a temple, and maybe he was. Late in the afternoon, he said, "Funny. One of my professors told a story about a company that came back to life after firing its best manager. That was you, wasn't it?" I nodded. Yeah, it was, but I didn't say more, because what mattered wasn't who I was. It was what I was building now. The following week, we were invited to a regional business event. Danner Freight Solutions won the award for the most trusted emerging logistics operation in the state's agricultural sector. I stepped on stage wearing the same shirt as always. No blazer, no rehearsed speech. I just said, "Sometimes the best route is the one everyone else threw out for looking too old." And I walked off, under quiet, but genuine applause. Back home, Diane was waiting for me on the porch. "You thought you'd lost everything, but maybe you just needed to remember what you always had." I looked up at the clear October sky. The road was there. It always had been. But now, it carried my name.